Hi and welcome to What's Not to Like, and today we're looking at Mare Nostrum, designed by Serge Laget. And this is a game we played with Peter and Gary and Jason, but we didn't do a preview for this game because, to be quite honest, the game didn't really pan out that well in terms of sociability, shall we say that at the end. We had a bit of a fallout really, which is unusual for us. We usually get on really well, but we'll talk about that in the afterthoughts section about the game, because that's really when I want to talk about the game anyway. We'll come to that later on. So just a quick word about this game. I went with Gary to Dragon's Meet and we were looking to buy some games, and we went to one of the stands and we looked at a few games, and I said, oh, that's a game for me. Mare Nostrum sounds fantastic. It's right up my street, a game of ancient civilizations with a map, and you've got armies and fleets, forts, temples, lots of resource management, fantastic sort of overall thematic idea to me. So I was delighted to buy that game, and we got it out and we gave it a try. I read up the rules and we cracked on with it, and it was, it fulfilled everything I expected of a game really. There was a time when these are the sort of games we played an awful lot of, games where an empire will be built up, resources gained, you'd get a better position on the map, grow your empire, and then by natural development of that you'd come into conflict with other players and have to combat them. And that historically is a very strong tradition in gaming. It's a tradition I think we came through. So Risk, we played as teenagers in the garage. Later on I played Diplomacy with friends in sixth form. And we went on then through the Ragnar years playing lots and lots of games in this way. For those who know the SPI series of games, we played Strategy 1 and Strategy 2, which were sort of classics of the same genre of growing a position on a map, getting stronger, and then trying to be strong enough to overcome your opponents. It's a very strong tradition, and something we've really enjoyed in the past. However, we also hit a barrier really with these games, and the kind of tipping point with it was when we played a game called Buck Rogers, which I think you'll find pretty hard to get hold of these days. And it sounded fantastic. You had to build your space stations and your position on Earth, or go to the moon, and then you eventually came into conflict with the players. The only trouble was that we built up our position to such an extent, and then people crashed into each other, and really it just led to lots and lots of falling out between players. It really didn't work too well, and I think we kind of drew a line under that and said, games like Buck Rogers, and it became a sort of a phrase we use really, the Buck Rogers game. We sort of drew a line under it and said that's really not for us anymore. And out of that, really, History of the World came out of that tradition, the idea of building the whole history of the world by building your position and growing stronger. And I was very keen to develop a game like that. But we were lucky with History of the World in that because the game was so long, thematically, it really wasn't possible to play each empire and keep on growing it. And so, as a natural development of the idea, each empire just appeared on the map with a certain amount of power, expanded, and then was put into a state of resignation or decline. It just didn't take part anymore, except to score points on the board. And that got round this problem of somebody getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and eventually taking over the position on the map. So we were lucky with History of the World, because that led to a kind of completely new way of looking at a historic game, and I think people enjoyed it because of that. Anyway, to get back to this game is a game that was designed in 2003, which is like 10 years and more after History of the World. So it's not kind of influenced by that, and it does hark back really to that tradition of earlier games. I think of games like Six Caesars was a game that explored the whole of the Mediterranean ancient world and looked to do that. And I think Six Caesars was a good game, but it wasn't as well thought out in terms of the dilemma of the game really as this is. Because when we look at this game, there are one or two features in it that show that they recognise that problem of the Buck Rogers problem and try to deal with it in some imaginative way. So the first thing I point out about this game is that unlike that tradition of gaming I'm describing in the past, this game is much more about resource management. And they've got a really neat resource system, which I'm not going to explain in detail, but basically wherever you go to, you can have your camel trains or your camps, and that helps you develop your resource position in each of those positions. And each of the lands you're in will develop a particular type of resource. So here you have some grain, here you have some columns, somewhere else you've got diamonds, here you've got some metalwork, here you've got some sheep. I don't know what the actual names of those things are, but the concept is that each region will have maybe a different combination of resources, and overall on the map they're spread across the map. Some resources are more plentiful, some are less plentiful. And then the way you combine those resources is the way you generate enough capital to develop your armies or your cities or your temples on the map. And at the end of each of your resource phase, anything that's excess is discarded back to the pile. So you can't accumulate more and more resources. So it's a very, very gamey system to bring in the resource management into this conflict situation. And as I've said in previous games we've described, I think gamers are looking for that sort of clever gaming mechanism in a game to help them do something more than just coming into conflict situations. So I think that works really well. And the second way they've tried to deal with this conflict resolution and getting stronger and becoming more powerful on the map and gradually taking over is that that's not the way to win the game. It can be a way to win the game. There are several ways to win the game. But generally speaking, I suspect that's not the way you do it. Most of the time, it's to do with collecting these cards up here, these tiles up here, which are a variety of historic figures or mythological figures, or it could be the buildings of the seven wonders of the world. And each of these can give you a certain points factor towards getting a victory condition. So you might have quite a weak map position by the end of the game, but you've accumulated enough of those tiles there to win you the game. So again, it's not getting into that situation where it's all about dominating the map position and taking on other people and destroying other people. You can win the game by more subtle means. So I think they've answered those two questions really well to develop a much more contained gaming situation where the conflict is still present and an important part of the game, but it isn't all dominating. So that's all very well, but we're back to the afterthoughts now, and I suppose the question you're asking is, why did our game not really work? And I think this brings in an aspect of gaming which we all know about it, but it isn't really reviewed, is it? Personalities in games is what I'm talking about. Different people's personalities will influence how they play the game. Now, the Ragnars historically have not been great at playing games together. We are a group of guys who grew up together in our late teens, early 20s, and to be honest, we are too competitive with each other. We don't mind not winning, but what we can't stand is losing. And we can't stand losing to certain other people, more than other people, and we're not very good at losing in certain gaming situations. And this is a classic gaming situation that a Ragnar would not like to lose in. Anything that involves conflict, where you're really putting your heart on your sleeve and really going for it, you don't want to be seen to be losing, and you don't want to be losing to certain people. And I think the personality that you bring to a game, it really is going to influence your enjoyment of the game. And that's one reason why we gradually steer clear of them. In our instance with this game, I haven't set it up quite as it was, but basically Jason was playing Rome and I was playing Greece and Gary was playing the Carthaginians and Peter was here playing the Egyptians. We didn't actually have the Persians in, but I put it up just for a moment. And what happened was that Jason and I had a little bit of a quarrel up here, but didn't fall out too much. And Gary, meanwhile, was able to just sort of expand, and he managed to land on Crete. And I saw an opportunity to jump on Crete and take it over, because I'd run out of options over here, rather. Well, that was bad enough, but as soon as I did that to Gary, Jason saw his opportunity, he attacked Gary over here. Well, Gary didn't particularly like that. He attacked Peter, which Peter didn't particularly like, so Peter then attacked Gary. Meanwhile, I consolidated Crete, and while Gary tried to attack me back, I put up a defensive shield of fleets and ships. He wasn't able to get to me, and at that point, well, we ran out of time, let's put it that way. It didn't really work out. Nobody in our gaming group particularly liked the idea that they were being taken to the cleaners by another player. And I think that's where the personalities come into play. Now, for lots of gamers, I think a lot of gamers won't touch this sort of game. And in the hobby overall, there is this kind of shying away from the conflict scenario type of game. And I think that's the main reason for it. I don't think people, I suppose some people really don't like the idea that you're going to play a game about fighting and killing and taking over lands and all that, and I quite appreciate that. But I think a lot of gamers, historically, have always enjoyed that, as seeing it as being, one of the most exciting aspects of gaming, having a map, having an empire, building your own position, moving forward with your men, taking things over. It's a very strong thematic idea. But I'm sure a lot of gamers have shied away from it in recent years because it doesn't lead to a very pleasant gaming's evening when you're falling out with your best friends because, you're basically not really getting on that well on the map, and you're expressing yourself in a way and someone's having a hard time of it. It's not particularly well. And so consequently, our gaming groups tend to focus on games where that sort of thing doesn't happen very often. Frankly, I'd rather play games like this. I love this theme, but we seem to play a plethora of games about the medieval world and resource management. I quite like those, but I could do with a few less of those and a few more like this. So I was keen to try this, but it still fell into the same trap. So that is the kind of afterthought, really. We can still play games like this, but I think we'll still have that major dilemma with games like this, that personalities will come into play and it will spoil some people's gaming experience and they won't want to do it. Now, the good thing that's come out of this, from my point of view, is that having kind of analysed that, and analysed that partly because I'm doing these videos, I'm quite excited by getting a few gaming ideas together that I think might just tease out a few really exciting ideas and develop a new game and base it on this incredibly exciting ancient world we've got here. So I'm looking forward to developing that game, but you'll have to wait probably a couple of years before we get it out. But anyway, thank you for listening to me, talking about a favourite subject. Look forward to seeing you again on What's Not to Like sometime soon. Thank you.